What's up, everybody? Week 2 is almost in the books here, but we have some games winding down, and one of them is the Titans and Seahawks. And if you don't know me, I'm a Titans fan, so a piece of me is slowly dying as I sit on the show with you, and my TV with the game on is downstairs. Either way, we have a hell of a game on Sunday Night Football, Baltimore and Kansas City, and I got Keith with me. What's going on, man? How are you?
Yeah, man. Great game finishing up in Seattle there. So sorry you can't catch the end of that. But yeah, looking forward to this Kansas City, Baltimore. Should be, I think, a lot of points scored here. Two pretty good teams. Ravens dealing with some injuries, so we got to get into that a little bit. But yeah, should be a decent one.
Yeah, we did have some injury news pre-lock-ish. Do you want to fill everybody in about the alerts we had recently?
Yeah, Marquise Brown was questionable coming in, and Devin Duvernay were questionable coming in. Looks like both of them are suiting up. Another note, their left tackle, who is like one of the top left tackles in the league, Ronnie Stanley, is inactive. So definitely a hole in that Ravens offensive line. I think that's going to impact kind of how this game plays out. So yeah, good notes to keep in mind there. So we'll just have to kind of talk through how the Ravens move the ball in this game.
Yeah, you pretty much hit that one on the head. Every body in or out is important in showdown, especially when you talk about the Ravens wide receiver corps, because there's just not a ton of volume that goes around there. And we'll get to some of that theory and all that stuff momentarily. Quick plug, BetMGM, guys. It's, start of the new season, a lot of good promos on a lot of these sports books and websites. Use the promo code GRINDERSBET. Bet $10 to get $200 instantly on BetMGM. Get on over there to BetMGM. And of course, RotoGrinders Premium. A lot of great stuff we have over there at RG, from articles to podcasts coming out almost every day, videos, showdown, whatever sport you play, you can pretty much mix and match whatever you want to subscribe to. Of course, the ownership projections are great, and Lineup HQ, the best optimizer in the industry, in my opinion. Keith, how did your main slate go, man? Talk to me. What was your day like today?
Well, I faded Cooper Kupp today, so my main slate was over very early. He puts up like 40 DraftKings points, and just faded him in tournaments and in cash. I thought it was important. Was too chicken to pick which Dallas wide receiver I wanted, so I jammed them both in there. Of course, I had to have Keenan Allen, so didn't have Kupp in cash either. So yeah, bit of a loss, but that's right. We chase those losses on the showdown, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect time for it. I played a bunch of Tom Brady in the 153 max. Didn't cash any of my lines, so my other correlations were garbage. So it is what it is. You'll have those days. Hey, everybody overreacted about the whole Mike Evans. Well, where's Antonio Brown today, right? Like today was Mike Evans and Gronk. So classic NFL. It's good to be back in the driver's seat, man. You gotta love it. So pretty crazy week here. We've had such terrible showdown. No knock against the Giants and the football team, but like the games were just haven't been great on Thursday Night Football. And I think I looked ahead, the next couple are pretty bad too. So we have to really enjoy this Sunday night game, whether you're playing DFS or not. You said to me pre-show, and by the way, we'll get to questions a little bit later in the show. So drop them in the YouTube chat, like and subscribe. Let us know what you want to hear, and we'll do the best to answer your questions. You said, I don't know how the Chiefs are only a slight favorite here. So talk to me, what do you think the spread should really be in your opinion? And like, what's your favorite game script, or what do you think's going to happen? Give me your predictions.
Yeah, so big total sitting here, 53.5, which I mean, I'm totally on board with that. I think there's going to be some points here. But I just don't know how the Ravens keep it that close. So the line opened at like -2.5 Chiefs, and it has moved to -4. But with all of the injuries the Ravens are dealing with, this team just is not what they were coming into the season. So for me personally, I think it should be like Chiefs -6, maybe not quite a full touchdown, but 4 just seems like it's too close to me. So I like the Chiefs side of this. The Ravens without their left tackle, obviously without their top like 3 running backs that happened before the season. Injuries on defense as well. Jimmy Smith is another guy that's going to miss the game. Like the Ravens are really, really banged up here. So obviously Lamar is a dynamic playmaker. He can keep them in this to some degree. But we're talking about like one of the best teams in football with the Chiefs here, and just a ton of offensive firepower. I'm struggling with how the Chiefs are going to keep it, or how the Ravens are going to keep up in this game.
You just can't play the he said, she said game with who beat who in the NFL, right? Of course, we know most of us watched the Las Vegas Baltimore game. It was just one of the most ridiculous endings and sequences. And I don't know how John Gruden has a job, by the way. But get used to him, Las Vegas. He's locked in for a long time. So if you're playing that game, wow, okay, the Las Vegas got a huge win over Baltimore, who was really banged up though, and for the most part, they kind of still are. And the Raiders go in and beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh today. But how good is Pittsburgh? And Roethlisberger, he looked terrible. I caught most of that game. He looked atrocious. That Najee Harris chalk got bailed out too late in that game.
Yeah, that Pittsburgh offensive line is quite a mess, and I agree. Ben looks like he doesn't have much left in the tank, so that'll be interesting to watch.
So I don't really know, like if you're like comparing apples to oranges here, because the Chiefs gave up a lot of points to Cleveland, who's a very good run-oriented offense. Baltimore is a run-oriented offense, but they scored at will, especially in that second half against Cleveland, and which is allegedly a top 5 to 10 defense on paper this season in the Browns. So I don't know. Maybe the spread is about right. I think maybe another point would be about better. A little bit bigger of a spread there. So I kind of get it, but also, note if you're like looking in and digging into notes, Lamar's been terrible against Kansas City, and Mahomes has been great against Baltimore, throwing the no less than like 360 something yards against them each game or something like that. And they are really banged up. No Marcus Peters. So I don't know if you look at, if you're a premium subscriber, and Alan did a great Showdown Slate IQ article. Usually the quarterbacks command the most ownership at captains and DraftKings. I don't know. We're slight projections here, slightly that Tyreek and Kelsey might be a little higher than Mahomes, which is just rare to see. And, we're so used to seeing wide receiver 1 is where all the leverage is typically in most of these at captain and most of the showdown slates here. So I don't know. I mean, DraftKings did a really great job at pricing this thing and making it really challenging. So if you want to do a jam them all type in a lineup, you're not going to be playing one of these studs where all the volume is coming in. You're playing a low volume Baltimore pass catcher, or a low volume, looking for a bomb Mecole Hardman type of guy, most likely. Or you're just throwing a huge dart here if you're jamming them in. So really, like, it's nearly impossible rationally to build with Lamar and Mahomes together if you're playing like optimal-ish higher stakes. I mean, you could punt like Byron Pringle. Sure, he played 14 snaps last week. If he catches a touchdown, he's optimal. I get it. Millie lineups will have him. But DraftKings did a really good job for once. So when we're seeing our data, which is awesome, and it shows us that a 2-4 build is typically where you see the highest leverage, and I'm sure you took a look at that before the show. It's kind of hard to make a Kansas City 2-4. I mean, you can go a pass catcher in Mahomes. But you better hope that pass catcher catches 2 touchdowns or goes for $150 or something like that. So what are your thoughts on the type of builds for this evening, Keith?
Yeah, with the pricing here and the upside potential of some of these guys for fantasy, there's some really tough decisions to make. Like you said, I mean, you kind of have to pick Mahomes or Lamar, and Tyreek Kelsey is a decision as well. So yeah, it's really difficult. And then like me, I think the Chiefs are ahead for most of this game. Theoretically, they should be handing off to CEH quite a bit. So I think he's got to be in play. Andrew's probably the top guy for Baltimore. It's impossible to fit all the guys that you want to play. So you got to get creative with the build a little bit. I think building for a game script is definitely very important. And just playing and that's where the four, like if you're playing 2 Chiefs and thinking that they're winning the game, can you really play Baltimore running backs if they're going to be throwing? I mean, and then if you're not doing that, how do you get Lamar into that lineup? So it's going to have to be something really cheap, like Duvernay, who came in questionable, or even like a Prochet way down the list, just to fit everybody in the lineup.
And Duvernay has had opportunities dating back to last year and just is not involved. Like he'll have 2 targets maybe, which I guess in that offense is a decent share from time to time, right? But you're low volume, and even if he catches both of his targets, you need one of them to be a touchdown probably, or one of them to be a chunk play. It's really hard to go down that deep. I typically try to stay away from 3-3 builds, but sometimes you just have to go. If we know what the data is, but pricing and circumstances are different. So I have a little bit more 3-3 than I wanted to when I built.
Same. Yeah.
Wasn't my goal. I wanted to go 2-4, and I have some 2-4, and I have some 4-2, but I have a little bit more 3-3 than I wanted to here. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that ended up that way. I really did a lot of digging before the 4:00 games, kicked off. But just in terms of upside, you really need one of those, in my opinion, if you're not going Chiefs pass catching stud or one of the quarterbacks. Like that's it for cash games, for high stakes. Like you're playing Hill, Kelsey, Mahomes, or Lamar in cash games, or little games with 10 to 25 or 30 people in them, right? Or 100 people, maybe you can go, a little bit of leverage there. But that, if you're playing for floor, you're playing one of those guys, right? And higher stakes kind of stuff and small fields.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't go anywhere outside of that. And even in large field, I mean, I know you want to try to get some leverage on the field somewhere, and all those guys are going to grab a fair amount of ownership in the captain, but they all have the most upside too. And it's not like it's upside by just a little bit over another guy who's significantly cheaper. It's like they have a chance to put up like 40 points here. So yeah, I think how I'm going to get the leverage is fade the quarterbacks and captain. I'm going to pick Tyreek or Kelsey mostly in the captain, and hope to hit the right one. I probably fade the other one in the rest of the lineup entirely, which is obviously scary with the volume that both of those guys get. But that's kind of the build that we're forced into here, I think. So,
yeah, and historically, the Chiefs are just kind of an anomaly. Tyreek and Kelsey are so good, and the target share is so condensed that they are able to crush together. But on Showdown with this pricing, I don't. With using one of them at captain, I don't know how much of the other you're going to be able to play with him as well, right? And play Mahomes too. I mean, is there an outcome? Is there what outcome would it have to be if you played Tyreek or Kelsey at captain with the other one, but didn't play Mahomes? Like, what kind of game is there even like a reasonable outcome, or what kind of game would this have to be if you don't play the quarterback? Which I think is probably asking for a death wish there with your bankroll, but
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something I considered. I think you have to hope for some, like Holmes can only throw for 2 touchdowns. If he runs for one, like you're totally drawing dead, right? So you have to get touchdowns to each, Tyreek and Kelsey, and those can be the only 2 touchdowns that he throws. And both of them probably have to get the 100-yard bonus too. So I think if they're literally the only 2 guys that do something, that's how it works out. I don't think it's very likely, but it is something that I considered, just because of the offense of the Chiefs being so highly concentrated. Like it's something that feels like it should play out a time or two and make some sense.
Third fiddle, and a guy who really hasn't lived up to the hype since being drafted, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But he's still getting the touches. You look what happened in week 1. He's fully healthy now. He played the second half of last year with a bothered ankle, I think he had. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, usually you don't get a lot of leverage playing a running back in these things, but when everybody's all over the pass catchers, did you consider a game script with Clyde Edwards-Helaire? I mean, if he scores twice, I mean, there's a good chance that he's optimal at the savings you're going to have and, filling your flex spots.
That's exactly the game script that I built for Edwards-Helaire. I didn't play him hardly in the flex at all. So I'm running him in the captain and MVP a little bit in the hopes that he is the touchdown scorer that you need. And basically Kelsey and he'll bust, or one of them just gets like 80 yards and no touchdown, and they just don't get there for their salary. And Edwards-Helaire outscores them. So when I'm playing him in the captain.
Yeah, and it's a nice little hedge because where you have them, you'll have it where it will hurt everyone else for the most part.
That's right. Yep.
So I do like that. I mean, there is an outcome where he's optimal in flex, right? But he'd probably have to score for sure. I'm thinking. I don't know. This Ravens team, we don't really know how banged up they are, but they're banged up enough where Derek Carr looked really damn good against him. So that's another scary thing too, fading one of these Chiefs pass catchers is like, it's hard to gauge where their defense is at when they're playing the Raiders week 1, right? So the eye test and the data is like, I don't know. I don't know. Obviously it was a Darren Waller show. It was his damn birthday. He had 35,000 targets. That being said, maybe they saw other than it being Darren Waller, but how do you feel about Mark Andrews? Let's talk about some of these Baltimore guys. Like if you're thinking of going captain with any of these guys outside of Lamar, you'll have pretty decent leverage, but we know it's a low volume attack. Obviously Lamar does a lot of damage on the ground with his legs. We know this. So if you're going anywhere, Marquise Brown is active. Sammy Watkins looked good. Did I hear anybody say revenge game? I don't know. Mark Andrews did nothing week 1, but that's who he is. He'll do nothing and then go for 25. Like that's just with the low volume. That's how it is. So talk to me about the Ravens side of things.
Yeah, the low volume compared to when you look at the Chiefs side, it makes it really hard to do that. But I did force some of it in. I'm not using any Marquise Brown in the captain. I just don't. Questionable coming in. Dealing with an ankle injury for a speed guy has me off of him a little bit. I mean, there's so many good plays on these two offenses that you need to make some cuts somewhere. So Brown is the guy I'm going to be underweight on. Obviously, I could get burnt by that. But Andrews is the guy I'm looking at. It's tough to say that a tight end has as much upside and can be the top scorer on the slate, but Andrews is one of the most talented pass catching tight ends that we have. I mean, he's not quite on the Kelsey Kittle Waller tier probably, but he's right there in that very next tier. So Andrews is the guy I'm looking at, even over Watkins. I do have a little bit of Watkins, but I prefer Andrews.
The problem is the tier of Kelsey is just so upper echelon. Like the gap is very wide. So I don't know, but I'm with you. If I want to go 2-4 and go Baltimore squeaks one out, they're at home, whatever. Maybe they play well. They're the problem I'm having is they're really dinged up defensively. That's the problem I'm having. And losing Marcus Peters really sucks. There's no sugarcoating it. That was bad. Double whammy there back in practice. What, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. That was a huge loss with Dobbins and the whole injury bug that's floating around there. But I'm in agreement with you. I think it's Andrews. I think if they're moving the ball, he is the clear red zone guy too. So I like his odds a little bit even more there. And obviously the salary savings there. Very boomer bust though. I totally get it. So if you're just joining us here, cash games, we're playing a Chiefs pass catcher, we're playing Mahomes or Lamar. We're not going outside of that. If you're playing small field stuff, I think it's kind of the same situation here. My lean is on the Kansas City pass catchers. And thanks for keeping me up to date with this Titans Seahawks game, guys. And man, let me tell you, I have a new appreciation for field goal kickers after the last couple of years and what the Tennessee Titans have dealt with. So for my own health, I think I'd much rather be here with you guys on this stream than watching Randy Bullock come back and maybe try to knock one through the uprights because I just can't mentally handle it. So here we are. And let's talk a little bit about this here. So large field GPPs, I saw a Mecole Hardman question in chat here. Is he viable at all? If he catches the bomb, is he most likely optimal? Like, him and Demarcus Robinson are priced fairly close to one another. My opinion, Demarcus Robinson is a very boring guy who gets a lot of snaps. Just hopefully he catches he's not going to get a ton of volume, so you kind of need like a red zone touchdown or something, or a complete blown coverage. While I feel like Hardman is actually kind of a threat, is the wide receiver 2 this year. So for large field GPPs, I kind of don't mind Mecole Hardman. Obviously, it's really scary, but what are your thoughts about him? I know he's probably going to be a popular, cheaper guy people might want to throw at the captain spot.
Yeah, with the way the salaries are, if you're trying to jam in some of the guys at the top, you're going to have to stomach something like this. Talk about a guy that's had opportunity and hasn't done much with it. Hardman definitely fits that line of thinking. So I have just as much interest in Robinson. Obviously, I'm not playing Robinson to hit the home run like you would for Hardman, but I just think that the likelihood Hardman hits the home run is so low. I probably get Robinson at a little bit lower ownership. And I think he's just as likely to hit a touchdown in the red zone. Like Hardman could score from anywhere on the field. Robinson probably cannot. But once they're in the red zone, I think both of their opportunity is pretty much equal. If it's not going to be Hill or Kelsey, it's probably one of those two. Obviously, Edwards-Helaire is in there too. But you have to mix these guys in. Neither one of them are great plays in my opinion. But it's just kind of the way the slate works. You're forced to go down that low.
Since we're talking boomer bust vanilla wide receivers, now that Marquise Brown is activated, I guess tell me about him, but also Sammy Watkins. He was the guy out there running one wide receiver sets for most of the Las Vegas game. It wasn't Marquise Brown. We saw a lot of Watkins being the number one receiver, or whatever you want to call it, in sets where they were running power formations. You want to get technical, I think Mark Andrews is probably their number one receiver for being technical here. But now that Marquise Brown's the go, which he was last week, and we don't know how hurt he really is, but man, I'm looking at these price tags and you're wondering why you can't jam in, 4 Ravens that make you feel good, is because Watkins 7,800 at flex on DK. And Marquise Brown, Hollywood, I'm sorry, is 9. That's kudos to DraftKings for making this really challenging tonight, because it's a lot more fun where there's going to be a lot less dupes probably.
Yeah, I can't do the price tag on Marquise Brown. He's kind of in that Hardman role where he's a deep guy. You need the big play to get there. He did have a decent amount of targets in week 1, 6 targets, but for him to pay off that price tag, it's probably got to be a long touchdown to pay it off. I think Watkins has a more likely chances to get there on volume. He saw 8 targets last week. He did only catch 4 of them, so you can argue about the talent there. I'm with you. I prefer Andrews to both of them. So I have more Andrews. He's cheaper. I think he gets the most volume, and I think he has the highest touchdown equity. So Andrews is the guy that makes the sense over both of them.
And obviously my bad. This running back carousel in Baltimore, since they've dealt with, Dobbins and Justice Hill. Let's just bring in everybody that's been a has-been. Here comes Devontae Freeman. Here comes Le'Veon Bell. And you got Williams, who I thought looked pretty good, and then he kind of disappeared. And they favored Latavius Murray in the second half there. So for me, a guy like Latavius Murray is hard to fit in Chiefs game scripts. Love the price, but he's not going to be on the field in passing down situations. Williams showed us he can catch the ball out of the backfield, which I think is good, and they priced him accordingly here. So trying to figure this out is a hard. I don't think anybody really knows outside of that locker room, and honestly, maybe even until we see how the game flow goes. I'm just saying, I think Latavius needs to play in a very neutral game script. I think, if they get the ball at the 1 or inside the 5, sure, he could vulture. He's going to get the goal line work. It could happen. I get it. I wish Williams was a little bit cheaper, because I favor him in Chiefs game scripts and some of the builds I was making there. What are your thoughts about this backfield in Baltimore?
Yeah, really tough one to figure out here. And the pricing is difficult on them too, especially if you're wanting to pay up for the Chiefs guys and Lamar. I'm like you. I don't know exactly what to expect. After the first half, it would have looked like Williams was the guy last week. But then Murray gets most of the run in the second half. I think Baltimore continues to run the ball here, even if they're trailing. We've seen that kind of in the past. They're just one of those stubborn run teams. They prefer to run the ball. But you do have Lamar to contend with as well. They'll design runs for him. He'll scramble a lot. So they might go that route. It's hard to say. I don't know that I have a great answer. So I'm mostly just avoiding it kind of, and going with some of the weaker plays in the pass catchers. One of them probably gets there. I don't know. Williams, I guess if I had to guess, is the lead guy. But it definitely scares me what we saw last week where he kind of disappeared in the second half.
I got to give a quick shout out to my girlfriend who never even really watched football until we started dating, and I had nothing to do with her being a Titans fan. It just happened to be on the TV. So she's literally texting me, Randy Bullock, 14th kicker on the roster in last 3 seasons, and is number 14, made the field goal, and that's a W. So I'm like 80% sure the Titans won, right? But I haven't looked at the YouTube chat in about 3 minutes. So like I'm giving her a little bit of props that she's like reciting info like she's doing a better job than Kenny Mayne and whatever trash is on Sports Center now. So I actually like Kenny Mayne. So wow, the Titans really get a dub in Seattle. Can anybody confirm? Anyway, drop your questions in the YouTube chat. I'll be checking up on it momentarily with this confusing Sunday night game we have here. Do you know the answer to that, Keith? Do you have the game in front of you?
We got the W, Justin.
We got the W, says Devin. Wow.
We got the W.
God. And if you listen to the podcast I had with Chief, I've seen this movie too many times. I said the most Titans thing ever would be going to Seattle and get a win somehow after Chandler Jones fest in week 1. So wow, that's crazy. Good stuff. Anyway, let's put a couple builds up here. I'm doing the join.me little view here.
Before you do that, I have something to run by you, and it's a scorching hot take.
Okay, I'm with it. We're here for that.
But if we think that the Chiefs win, and I think that it's not out of the realm of possibility, range of outcomes, that the Chiefs win pretty big here, how likely is it that CEH closes the game if they're up by, say, 2 scores? I think a lot of times last year we saw Darrell Williams in that role. Like,
it's not scorching hot. I mean, I was taking Jerick McKinnon in best ball 4 weeks ago, so I was pretty unclear about this backfield too. And he is the bruiser. Andy Reid definitely likes him. I don't know, is 2 touchdowns comfortable though? I think it'd have to be like a substantial lead. But can he vulture a goal like inside the 5 score? Yeah. And on the slate, would that work? Throw it in the Millie, Keith. We'll go.
Yeah, I mean that's my thinking. He had one touch in week 1, but
all that matters.
They trailed the majority of that game, and that's not the game script that I'm playing for in this one. I think if the Chiefs are ahead, that Darrell Williams might get. I mean, I'm not looking for 15 carries. If he gets 8 to 10 touches here, for his price tag, I think there's a chance he could fall in the end zone. He's paying it off at that. So just wanted to throw that out as kind of a really deep tournament play, obviously, but I think that he's viable on the slate.
I don't hate it. He makes a lot of lineup constructions work. I kept falling in that kicker range. So in a game with a lot of points, maybe they don't close a couple of drives. Like, how viable are kickers in this kind of, Vegas total over, 53, 54, whatever it is? Can you play kickers? Would you play 2? Or would you play any? Like, were you falling in that same range with some of your builds too?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I was like looking at him. I'm like, he had 1 touch. How can you play this guy? But looking back at last year, there were some games where he got a little bit of run. And I know CEH dealt with injuries for most of last year. That could have been the reason why. I don't know, but I think I'm willing to do it a little bit at least, and just hope it works out. Like you said, otherwise you're kind of looking at like 2 kicker builds, and is there enough upside with that?
Like, I know this sounds crazy, but in the right game script, I'd rather throw Williams in my lineup than Duvernay, who's right below him, just because time after time we've seen this unfold where he's the value on the slate, Duvernay, and he just, I just hasn't done a damn thing. Now, here's one. Byron Pringle, 14 snaps last week. Every now and then he scores. What are your thoughts on the can of chips Pringle here?
Yeah, I mean, he'll probably run a dozen routes or something like that. You just need to hope he catches one and, I don't know, breaks free, or he gets a red zone target. I mean, it's going to be you're going to have to luck out quite a bit in it, but It's a play that makes sense. Like you're searching for that value constantly on this slate to play the guys that you want to play. One of them is probably going to work out and end up on the optimal lineup. It's impossible to tell which one that is, but those are the kind of guys I'm sprinkling around.
I was going to say that description you said, we're hoping he breaks free and scores a touchdown on like less than 10 snaps or like 2 targets is like everybody on this lineup HQ screen from like even Mecole Hardman down, right? Like, we don't know what kind of volume he's actually going to get tonight. And he's coming in damn near 30%. So like, we're hoping that one of these guys hits the home run or vultures the 1-yard touchdown, or Patrick Ricard comes in some weird full house set, right? At 0% ownership we have at, obviously it'll be probably less than 1, but like that's the kind of stuff that takes down millies on slates like these too. I'm playing the 153 max. I don't have the cojones to play Patrick Ricard or Darrell Williams tonight. I'm not doing it tonight. Playing the millie, yeah, got a little bit of bankroll. You think it's a viable build? Sure. Keith, I'm looking forward to one of those teams sitting at the top tonight with Williams, and I hope you victory lap the crap out of it and give me some hashtag. I know you're not a Twitter guy, but you might have to pop on Twitter tonight. You're not a Twitter guy at all, but if Darrell Williams is optimal, you got to pop up tonight on Twitter.
I'll have to throw something up there and hit you up in it.
All right, good deal. So we'll get to questions momentarily, but let's do this. I feel like we're both favoring the Chiefs. We'll put up most of a lineup here. Let's do a kind of a optimal tournament-ish style build, 3 max, single entry, not a crazy amount of contestants you're going up against. So my question to you is, gun to head, who's your favorite pass catcher for the Chiefs that you would captain? And of course, we talked about Edwards-Helaire at captain, which I really like for a little bit of leverage, even though historically in most similar games, that just hasn't been the way to go for leverage. I just think the Chiefs in this offense are such an anomaly, Keith, that I kind of throw a lot of data out the window when I'm dealing with this offense that we have. Do you kind of feel the same way from time to time?
I do feel the same way. Like, this is an offense unlike any we've seen in NFL history, really. Like, just the amount of volume that they have between their top 2 guys and the talent of Patrick Mahomes, I think it is truly a one-of-a-kind offense.
That being said,
that
being like Tyreek more, do you like Kelsey more, or do you just want to go different at captain? I'll roll with it.
Yeah, I'm leaning Tyreek. He's my highest exposed captain. It's a volume thing with him. Tyreek used to be this gadget guy that was getting there on bomb touchdowns on like 4 or 5 targets in a game. He is not that guy anymore. He is getting massive volume, 15 targets in week 1. There is no safer guy. Even I'm including Travis Kelce in that. He is the safest option, and I think he has the most upside by quite a long ways as well. So Tyreek's my favorite play. He's going to be in most of my lineups. He's the guy.
You know what? You can't argue against either one of them, but I'll go with your Tyreek case. I'm slightly favoring Tyreek as well. We both discussed earlier in the show that it would have to be a perfect, and it could happen because this is stinking showdown, man. It could happen where you don't have Mahomes in with a pass catcher, but it would have to be weird. And Mahomes has dominated the Ravens, typically plays really well in primetime, and looked fantastic in week 1 against a top 10 paper on defense. So we have to put Mahomes in here, correct?
If we do that, are we comfortable fading Lamar? Because I think that's the next conversation.
Yeah, elf in the room. You know what? He hasn't played well against the Chiefs. Obviously, it's a super small, point of data. The Chiefs defense isn't fantastic. What do you think about the matchup for Lamar? Before we decide whether we're going to fade him, let's talk through this real quick. 8:05 Eastern, by the way, got about 15 minutes before kickoff. Is it 8:20? Yep, on Sunday night. So talk to me about the Lamar matchup. I'm sure there's people listening, watching that are like, I'm thinking about fading Lamar too. Should I do it, Keith?
Yeah, I don't think you should, but I don't know that you have much of a choice. Like you have to choose between some of these guys. I'm leaning Mahomes over Lamar just because I think the Chiefs come out and win comfortably here. I think they beat the 4-point spread by quite a bit, and Lamar struggles to move the ball. Just without his top running backs, I don't think they have a very effective ground game. Without their left tackle, like I could see the Ravens offense really struggling in this one. So I'm much more comfortable fading Lamar than I am Mahomes.
So am I. You know what? I had the stones to fade him in most of my builds. Whenever they're on primetime was it the Raiders game? What's the Raiders game? Yeah. He was 94% owned in the The big $180 one on DK. Came in 14th, almost took it down. I was screaming for Kenyon Drake to get in late, but they kept in hobble Josh Jacobs. Thanks, John Gruden. But yeah, I think, you know what? Like, he can only do so much damage on the ground with his legs. I know it's a lot, but at that price point, like, he's going to have to be good in the air and also do a little bit of work on the ground too. So I'm okay with fading Lamar. We're just going to get to this point where we get these low volume guys, and like you said, picking the right one is for Baltimore is interesting. And here we add Mahomes in here, and whoops, I'm trying to add a captain like a Dumbo, but we get to the point where 2-4 statistically showed a lot of leverage in our slate IQ, and I'm not arguing with it. I totally get it in similar games. I'm okay if we don't go 2-4 here though, Keith. So where do you want to go after Tyreek captain Mahomes at flex here? You see it gives us an average of 5,300 and change per player. We have 4 slots left. Let's throw 3 players in here.
All right. I think we both agreed that Mark Andrews was the top option on the Ravens. He can get there through volume. He's their number 1 red zone target. He's the cheapest of their main pass catchers. I think Mark Andrews makes the most sense here.
Yeah, and at 5 targets, you're probably thinking, well, but like low volume attack, he's done a lot of damage with the similar amount of volume in the past. So I totally agree. The scary thing is they're going to have to move the ball a little bit for Andrews to get in the red zone, because that's where he does his damage. But I like the way the builds fit. And, with Brown being 9K and even Watkins being 78, I don't understand Andrews being 6,200. Do you? Do you think that's strange to me?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. You feel like either the other guy should be lower or Andrews should be higher. Like him being the 3rd cheapest of those options, I agree. That seems like a misprice.
And I do think this will be a fairly popular core. I'm not going to lie about it.
Sure.
But
yeah, we're going to have to get different somewhere.
Yeah. And I don't know, are you going to give me like a Darrell Williams take or something to throw in here? Or, what do you do after this? You have 5,100 per position left. The price points get strange. I love Latavius Murray fits on a lot of things I was trying to do, but you go Tyreek at the 1. We both think the Chiefs are going to play with the lead. Does he just get phased out by midway through the 3rd or halftime? I don't know. That's my problem with throwing in Latavius Murray. And there's a $1,600 price difference between Williams and Murray, and Devonta Freeman's active. What does that mean, Keith? I don't know. We won't know until after the game, probably, right? So, what are your thoughts here? How do you What do you go? Where else do you go from here? It gets tough here.
And you're going to make me pick
Yeah.
I do agree. It's Ravens running back is the next piece that we need, but I don't know which one to do.
But let me do this for you. I'm okay with playing a kicker. I have kicker exposure.
I think that's a good. And yeah, kickers are going to be popular as value plays, I think. I'm right there with you on that.
I don't mind Tucker. Like, I think Baltimore will have some drives where they move the ball. This is me drawing up something here, throwing it at the wall, but I don't know if they can finish the drives tonight. Who knows how dinged up Brown is? Cool, they play great against the Raiders. I'm not giving that like a stamp of approval. What if we throw Justin Tucker in here? Does that work for you?
I like that. Yep.
Okay, so we could throw one guy in here, I think legally, one more player in the flex here, but that gives us 5,850. We have Tyreek at the captain with Mahomes, Mark Andrews, and Justin Tucker, who's just a little bit cheaper than Butker, and I think either kicker is viable tonight, in the right build. So,
do you think it is? You have enough upside if you play both kickers? Like it differentiates this lineup because it leaves some money on the table, a fair amount. But you don't have a lot of upside with both kickers in there.
That's true.
Is there a scenario where you can win with that build?
I think there is. I think there is. Lamar would have to be really inefficient throwing to some of these low volume guys. It's so crazy. This sounds ridiculous, but there's outcomes where Justin Tucker, who's 3,600, outscores Marquise Brown or Watkins or Andrews or all of them in this low volume attack because none of them are safe. And I'm not saying he's going to outscore any of the Baltimore skill guys, but it's possible, right? Like he kicks a couple through, maybe an extra point or two. And, Sammy Watkins is still Sammy Watkins. I always like Sammy Watkins, and I know it's a revenge game. Hollywood's still Hollywood. None of them are possession receivers. And there's always that possibility of Sammy Watkins getting hurt at one of these 4 quarters. I think he's played through one game already. This is like a career high. They just made it through one game in the regular season before going down. So yeah, I mean, if we throw Butker in here, right, that gives you 7,900 to do, you have some options here. at the flex. Obviously, you can see lineup HQ here. Great tool here at RotoGrinders on the screen. We just talked about Watkins, and he's sitting right there. Edwards-Helaire. This is a slate where when you have such a low volume attack on the Baltimore side, and there's a lot of volatility, more than most teams, because the touchdown equity is so big that I'm okay with leaving a good amount of money on the table. Like if it comes down to it, I just think the Baltimore skill guys we talked about, Brown and Watkins are kind of just egregiously priced. But I get why DraftKings did it though. I get it.
And nobody's going to leave money on the table on this slate. I think it's generally a pretty popular strategy on a showdown. But when you have guys, when you want to pay up for Hill and Kelsey and Mahomes and Lamar, like everyone's going to spend as much salary as they can to jam all those guys in. But with this build here, if Tyreek gets all the volume in the Kansas City, obviously we're fading a Kelsey game. That's a very scary thing to do. But if you plug in one of the running backs here, you have your 2-4 leverage that we're looking for with 4 Baltimore guys. If one of the running backs scores twice, I think that's where the upside comes from. And then Hill is the touchdown scorer for Kansas City, or Mahomes runs one in. So I think it's viable, and you're definitely going to be different with something like this.
Yeah. I mean, is there anybody else in this bottom of the barrel? Can you play a defense tonight? That sounds like a terrible idea to cap off your weekend, playing a defense in this game, right?
Yeah. That's a tough call, but you get a pick 6 and it's gonna work out for you. It's tough to need a pick 6 to kind of pay it off, but I think there's plenty of points scored, and I don't know, Mahomes doesn't make many mistakes. Obviously Lamar can, so I'd lean Chiefs side of that if I was picking one.
Lamar held on to the ball quite a bit, and then too long is what I'm saying, and a couple fumbles last week. I mean, all it takes is for a scoop and score for this thing to flip on its head. I want to point out we're still starving for any kind of value. Devontae Freeman is projected to carry 10% ownership tonight on DK via lineup HQ, who is just getting activated. Right, he was followed Latavius Murray. He was signed with the Saints earlier in the summer before the season, correct, Keith? And didn't work out. Is that where he was? And
was it the Saints?
It was somewhere, right? My brain is just fried after all the prep preseason.
He might not even have been in camp, honestly, with anybody.
I don't know who I'm thinking about.
They might have just picked him up off the street.
Yeah, but 10% for him is crazy to me. I get it. I mean, you're just hoping. You're hoping they're super desperate. I don't like. From what the eye test for me, and I'm just an armchair coach. I'm just a guy who's on a show at you. But I saw enough out of Williams that I think he deserved to be on the field, probably playing ahead of Freeman.
He looked like he belonged out there. It's not like, I mean, he wasn't putting the ball on the ground either or anything like that. So he might have one fumble, but I don't know. He looked the part for the most part to me. Like I was surprised by his usage in the second half too. And I don't know if he got banged up or something. Like that's what makes this impossible to predict right here. And I mean, we were like that last week too. Like we're like, we don't know what's going to happen, but we just don't have the data to make decisions based on it. So,
and there's some unknown there. And usually I target the unknown, but clearly they prioritized Murray over Freeman, right? Flew him in pretty much right away, brought Murray in. So unless there is some kind of phantom, I don't see Freeman playing a lot. The Chiefs get up 3 touchdowns in the fourth. I don't know. Maybe then you get him a little bit of burn. If the game's over, like, can he squeak in a touchdown late for no reason? If this is a complete, blowout, I think the blowout could work both ways. If you go down to Freeman in terms of the Chiefs, maybe then he gets some reps, right? He hasn't played in a game in how long? So just something to think about there. I don't have any Freeman whatsoever, being crystal clear here. I have none.
I don't either, but I think that's how you have to do something like that if you're going to try to make the double stud Chief build work. Like if you're trying to play Hill and Kelsey, you have to do something like that.
Time's flying when you're having fun. We got a couple minutes before kickoff, so let's get to some questions in the chat. I'm sorry if I'm missing everyone here, but I'm just scrolling up. Okay. Mahomes has to be the lock right for QB, says Eric Murphy. You know what? It's just very game script oriented, Keith, right? I mean, obviously, gun to head, I'm taking Mahomes, and I have a lot more Mahomes in my builds than I have Lamar.
Yep, I'm on the same side as you. I think there are many more ways Lamar fails in this game than Mahomes. So
we had some Mecole Hardman, captain, wish me luck. I think Hardman goes off today. Hey, I'd love to see it. I don't know if it's going to happen. Low probability, but you know what? Baltimore's really dinged up, so I'm not dismissing it.
Yep, I'm with you. I did not do that because we've tried this, but we've seen this movie before, right? We just keep trying to make it work, and it hasn't to date. And he's been around for 2 years now, so yeah, I stuck strictly to the studs mainly, but I definitely don't fault you for getting it. He can hit a big one.
What do you consider Marquise Brown a captain tonight? Eric Johnson is asking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to tell you don't consider him because we've seen him have big games. Again, another thing that I'm not doing it, but if you have conviction that he's completely healthy, he makes sense. The price tag is really tough for me. I don't have conviction that he can pay that off, so I did not do it.
Make a lineup, just don't talk, says the Valleys. Well, we're giving you the tools. You make up what you think's gonna take our money later, and we'll see what happens. Is Williams in play? Baltimore running back. I think we both agreed he's in play, and we don't know what really happened in the second half against the Raiders, but I think he's the premier pass catching back between Latavius Murray and Devontae Freeman. It's possible Devontae Freeman doesn't even play tonight, by the way, right?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. He's just there in case of emergency and does not even see the field.
Can you play Marquise Brown and Andrews in the same lineup together? What are your thoughts?
I struggle with the Ravens' offensive efficiency, so I don't like that. The pricing is very tough to make that fit. Like, I have to fade too much of the Chiefs' offense that I want to be able to do that. So I'm not doing that.
Okay. Get some said he won $400 using lineup HQ today. That's what we like to hear, buddy. Good stuff. Congrats. Who's the highest leverage captain? In terms of actual upside, I guess, right? Like, we want some upside here. What are you thinking here? Lowest owned guy with real upside? I mean, honestly, Hardman has to be in the discussion per dollar, right? If he catches the bomb.
For me, it's Edwards-Helaire, just because I think he can score twice, and that might be good enough to be the highest scoring player on the slate. I think Mahomes and Lamar are obviously both far more owned. I think Hill is more owned, and I think Kelsey is more owned. So we're talking, and I think he's right there with Andrews. Andrews might be more owned than Edwards-Helaire. So he's probably like the 5th or 6th highest owned captain. I have a little bit. I don't love it. I prefer the passing attack for Kansas City, but Edwards-Helaire, I think, is a leverage spot.
Okay, we'll go rapid fire here. Can you play both Kansas City running backs? I mean, McKinnon's still floating around too. Imagining he means Williams and Helaire. I guess I don't know. It's not my favorite, but
I have an uncomfortable amount of Williams.
Okay.
So
thanks for being transparent.
But yeah, playing them together, I don't think is bad because of the pricing. Like, you probably need both of them to score, but it's certainly possible.
How about Prosh captain? Yes or no? Baltimore super value receiver here. I don't even know how much he played last week. I don't have any of them, if I'm being honest here.
He did not have a target. I mean, I guess you're assuming that Duvernay is just in uniform to stand on the sideline for that point, and then Proche kind of takes over the role. But yeah, I mean, it's a major dart throw.
819, hit those submit buttons, guys, on your lineups. Get them locked in. Sammy Watkins revenge game. You feeling it or not tonight?
No, not for me. Andrews all day.
I love a good revenge game, but I do favor Andrews as well. Don't pull a Chief Justice, says Derek. I'm not sure exactly what he means, but I love doing the work with the Chief. Our podcast will be recorded Monday night, and we'll talk about this wacky week.
Yeah, so Chief was on one of these shows and forgot to put his lineups in by lock, so he took an air ball on the whole set.
That's the worst. He's been crushing Prize Picks, by the way, guys. So if you want to follow the Chief, and he puts out a weekly video, I believe, at RG, my man's crushing Prize Picks. So good stuff, Chief. We are locked, Keith. That went smooth, and it's going to be an interesting game for sure. So I love your hot take.
I hope the Ravens can keep it close. That's not necessarily how I built my lineups, but I'm hoping for a good game and that the Ravens can keep it close. But I am concerned the Chiefs kind of run away with this one.
You know what? I've been like bringing Devin in at the end of the shows because he's just grinding away these Sundays. So Devin, we got the Tennessee dub. I didn't know you were a Titans fan. I know you lived in Nashville. So thanks for grinding that one away.
It's hard to not be a fan when you live here, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was 1-1 to 0-2 is a huge difference from losing it, getting slaughtered week 1 to going into Seattle and pulling it out. I don't think anybody pegged Tennessee winning this game, but that's usually when they win, right?
Getting some production out of Henry was nice. You hate seeing him get stuffed the entire game, but he pulled a couple of big ones out today, so that's fun.
Fellas, anything else before we get out of here?
I don't have anything else.
I think I'm
let's go watch some football.
probably going to go to
Some more.
sleep as soon as this game ends.
Well, thanks for all that you guys do, Devin. I know Sundays are super long for you, so thanks again for producing all of our great shows here. RG Premium, if you're not on, taking full advantage of what we got here, check it out. Looking forward to doing some more work with you guys. So for Keith and Devin, I'm Justin. Good luck, everybody.